So the premise behind this series is that when Jesus taught his followers to pray, he was not outlining for them a command around what to say. That instead, he was calling followers into a new life. Now, as I said last week, I have been to many different types of church services, and not all of them routinely use the Lord's Prayer in their prayer life, in their corporate worship prayer life. And I've heard the critique in the midst of that it really wasn't worship, it wasn't Christian worship, because they didn't say the Lord's Prayer. But for us, it tends to take on this mythical property in and of itself. That the words are almost as an incantation that contain power in and of themselves. Now, we do know that words have power, but they only have power insofar as we give them power. I could say, I am going to be a wealthy man. I am going to be a financially rich man. And then if I do nothing but sit and wait for that to happen, it means my words have absolutely no power. If, on the other hand, I change my life, in many respects to gain that goal, which, by the way, would never be a goal I would seek to gain. But if I change my life to gain that goal, then my words would have power. The power comes from what we give them, from the place we accord them. Jesus did not command us to say a paragraph of specific words. Instead, he was teaching his followers about a life lesson. He was calling his followers to look within themselves, rather than simply using words to try to bind the will of God. Now let me take you back to a story here. This was hundreds of years before Christ. A challenge had been offered between a prophet of Yahweh named Elijah and the priests of a god named Baal. I believe, if my memory serves me right, there was 50 priests. The challenge was that each would call upon their god to set fire to an offered heifer. Now, the priests of Baal believed that they could bind their god's hands by doing certain things. So they started first with their ritual words. When that didn't work, they went on to ritual dance. When that didn't work, they went on to ritual bloodletting. And nothing worked. Now, Elijah comes along afterwards and orders that the heifer be soaked with water 3 times. And then just says, God, do not put your children to shame. And poof, heifer's up in flames. God will not be bound by words. And so Jesus says, earlier in this passage from Matthew 6, he says, don't be like the pagans who believe that long, flowery words and speeches are going to have your prayers be answered. He's calling his followers into something different, something simpler. First of all, the recognition of who God is. Our Father in heaven, not the distant God who hides away and has nothing to do with us. No, an intimate connection. Our Father, our heavenly parent. Holy is your name. We recognize the holiness of God as independent from us, because we are not holy. We are broken, but yet still live in the light of this holiness. Hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come. Now this is a fairly simple prayer to utter, because it's not necessarily calling us to do something. calling God to do something. Bring about your kingdom. We don't say when. We say, bring about your kingdom. Your kingdom come. This is opening ourselves to something different. Now, this is the crucial point. As Jesus says, say your kingdom come, he is saying, open your heart to the movement of God. Because he would also go on to say that the kingdom is not just to come, the kingdom is already here. So as we say, your kingdom come, the hope is that we say this with an open heart, seeking the move of God in the moment that we are in. And this is reaffirmed as we then say, your will be done here as it is in heaven. Your will be done. Now, how do we, as broken, foolish children, not having full understanding, how do we know the will of God? Very recently, a Louisiana preacher who owns 3 jets said that God's will was that his congregation buy him another jet. I'm glad to hear there was a gasp there, because it should make us all gasp. If God's will is that somebody simply become more prosperous, particular people become more prosperous, we have a problem. Right now there is a movement mainly within North American evangelicalism called the prosperity gospel, of which this Louisiana preacher is one of them. It says that God wants to bless you with material objects. God wants you to be rich beyond all measure. And therefore, if you have 3 swimming pools instead of 1, you are more blessed. I'm glad to hear a chuckle, because it should make us also chuckle and weep. This prosperity gospel is sweeping through, and you know what? It's hitting us all. Because we're grabbing books, we're buying them up by the cartload of folks who espouse a prosperity gospel. Let me ask a question. Who here, and I'm not going to offer a judgment on this. In fact, it's good to read everything. Who here has read any of Joel Osteen's works? Not as many as I would have thought. Okay, there's a prime prosperity gospel proponent. Now, it may not come across in his books necessarily, as he's writing on a particular subject and not talking about the subject of the prosperity gospel, but it underlies what he does and what he says. It's his theological underpinning. And we tend to shudder at the thought of a prosperity gospel, as well I believe we should. Because it doesn't take seriously when John the Baptist says, if you have 2 cloaks, give 1 away. And if you have 2 meals, give 1 away. Having 3 swimming pools does not denote that you are more blessed than others, unless you are using those swimming pools for somebody else's sake. So now there again, it's not the money and it's not the possessions that are the problem. It's the heart that has them. Paul didn't say the love of money is the root of evil. He didn't say money is the root of evil. He said the love of money is the root of all evil. There's a big difference. It's the heart. Somebody can have a big house and use it for incredible purposes. Their heart can be aligned to a grander vision, rather than just seeing who can gain the most before they die. So it is not the possession that's the problem, it's the heart that goes into it. When Jesus says, your will be done, he's calling upon us to look deeper. Now, we say of those who would say, I need a new jet, God told me to give you that you're to give me a jet. We say that cannot be the will of God. And I would agree. But can we say, we may be able to say negatively what is not the will of God. For example, we could clearly say that child sacrifice is against the will of God. Very, very clear. But how do we know positively what the will of God is? How do we know what God expects of you and me today? How do we know? Well, I think there's three things to consider in the midst of that. One, we've got the Word. It's right there. The prophet says, love justice, be merciful, walk humbly with your God. There's the will. Jesus says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. There is the will. Last week we looked at a passage from the 4th chapter of John's Revelation that talked about the heavenly worship, the celebration. Now that's happening right now as the creatures, the 4 living creatures, give all glory and honor, praise and thanksgiving. And every moment of every time they do this, the 24 elders surrounding the throne cast their golden crowns before the throne and cry out, worthy, oh worthy are you, O God. It's a celebration. It's a loud, raucous celebration. And if that's happening in heaven right now, what's supposed to be happening right here, right now? Your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. This is a call to us to discern God's Word. Now, we've got the Bible. We've got the community. And those two are needed together. Because too often, if there is only one interpreter of the Bible, and that can be in a group of people as well. Sometimes in various Christian gatherings, the leader will tell you what you are supposed to believe. So that's not community. That's not discerning God's will together. That's just blindly following. And it often has led to disastrous consequences. We have a community that together can see. None of us have been called to check our brains at the door, and all of us bring here a different level of understanding that is good. No one level is better than another. We are called to bring it all together. Through God's Word in the community, we can discover who we are called to be. Now, the third thing I would caution in the midst of this as well, I believe that in our traditions, we tend to make theological understandings so complex that they're actually of very little use or value to us. And we like it when a preacher can preach up here with a lot of big words, and somebody who has read the Institutes of Karl Barth, by the way, take the whole bookshelf. We tend to make theological understanding so deep that we then say, I can't deal with that. And we step away from it. The reality is that God has called each and every one of us to walk in the presence of God. Not to step back and say, hey, we'll let the preacher tell us what we're supposed to be. Or we'll let the holy person walk with God on our behalf. It's really simple. When you think that the gospel, the thing that we hold so highly, was given to uneducated fishermen. Now, don't get me wrong, there is nothing wrong with being a fisherman. But these were not scholarly people. These were not the scribes, the 5% of the population that could read and write. These were simple folk who lived simply. And they got it. It wasn't deep theology. They didn't spend 4 or 5 years in a theological program and coming up with a doctorate to understand it. No, they walked it. They walked in the footsteps of their masters, and they learned about themselves, they learned about God, they learned about God's will simply by doing it. It's not complicated. Let's not make it so. We are called by a God who knows us fully, completely, and totally, and loves us fully, completely, and totally, and has called us to journey together in the light of that love. To honor that will, that celebration will, here on earth as it is in heaven.